Afternoon, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. And this is a couple days old now. Most of you people have probably heard of it, but this quote from Carol, I've just been thinking about it the last couple of days. We talked about it a little bit last night on the stream of the Hawk's Nest, and it's certainly been talked about quite a bit in Seahawks circles, but it kind of got me thinking about something, and I kind of related it to a very interesting stat that I've seen concerning the Seahawks this year. So, a couple of days ago, Carol was asked if Geno Smith is a better fit than Russell Wilson was in this offensive system, the Waldron system. And Carol, responding to that, said, in regards to Geno, he does what you tell him. Now, there's no doubt this is meant to be disrespectful to Wilson on some level. And I have tried to stay out of the little things in this little, I don't know what you would call it, psychological war between Carroll and Wilson as the two sides have been separated. I made a couple videos about it, but when it comes to these little shots that get taken, I'm trying to generally stay away from it in terms of making videos about it because it's kind of a lot of it's kind of silly. But this quote isn't just about Wilson. This quote is also about Geno. And now that Geno has actually played a couple of games this year and he's playing well, like genuinely playing really well, and we're seeing this offense produce probably a little bit better than it was with Wilson last year, even if you take out the games where he was injured. I kind of want to look at this quote and look at it through a certain lens here that I find very interesting. So, Carroll is implying by this quote that, yeah, Geno is better for this offensive system than Wilson. That's the implication. He doesn't say it directly in the quote, but the implication is you need a quarterback who will do what you tell him to do, and you can have success. I mean, Jared Goff famously cannot really read defenses. He makes one read, throws the ball, he's got a great arm, he can make all the throws, but you don't want him going through his progressions. You don't want him having to think. But Jared Goff does what you tell him to do, and so does Geno Smith, apparently. And this made me think about a chart that I saw on Twitter not too long after the Seahawks-Lions game concluded. I've talked about it a little bit already. I'll probably make another Geno video soon, but here. Okay, so this is early down pass frequency through 4 weeks in the NFL. Early down pass frequency. How much are you throwing the ball on early downs? And there are some filters in place here. The win probability needs to be between, both teams have to have a win probability of at least 15%, so it doesn't count blowouts. And it excludes the final 2 minutes of each half when whoever has the ball is very likely going to be throwing it every play regardless because they're trying to score. Through 4 games, the Seahawks with Geno Smith at quarterback are fifth in the NFL in early down pass frequency, right near 60%. The only teams ahead of them are the Chiefs, the Bills, the Chargers, and the Panthers. Chiefs and Bills make sense. They have superstar quarterbacks and super prolific offenses that are cutting edge in their own way, and it makes sense that they would be on top of something like this because it's generally understood that a high early down pass rate is good in the modern NFL, with rare exception of the teams that have a really, really strong run game. The Chargers make sense because we know that their coach is obsessed with analytics. Panthers kind of doesn't make sense except for the fact that they're bad and they're behind a lot and they're probably throwing the ball all the time because they're trying to make up ground. But a lot of this at the top makes sense, right? Like you've got the Chiefs and the Bills, maybe the two, I don't know if they're the two best teams in the league, but they're in the conversation, and they've got maybe the two best quarterbacks. And then you have the Seahawks here at 5, and you're like, okay, that implies a lot of trust in Geno Smith, too, as Pete said, do what he's told. And early down pass rate is something that we typically were not very strong in with Wilson. That's something that I talked about a lot on this channel. And I always said, look, if you're going to pay your quarterback all this money, you need to make him be the driving force behind your team winning or losing. So if you're going to give the quarterback that monster contract, then why is he not leading the league or being close to the league lead in early down pass frequency? Why are you not letting him do some of the things that the other top quarterbacks are doing quite often? And just to make sure I wasn't remembering wrong or maybe thinking about the wrong things, I did a little bit of checking on how we ranked in this stat in previous years. And the results were pretty interesting, but the point stands. So I recreated the chart for 2021 over here, basically the exact same constraints. Win probability must be above 15% for both teams, excludes final 2 minutes of each half. In 2021, last year, Wilson's final year in Seattle, our early down pass frequency was below average, slightly below average at about 50%. I can't help but notice that 4 of the best teams in the league made up the top 4 spots. Bills, Chiefs, Bucks, Rams. These teams were making deep playoff runs. So, pretty good indication that unless you have a very unique circumstance with your roster makeup, you're going to be you want to be one of the teams that is leading the league in early down pass frequency. Now, of course, it's not enough to just do that. You need a quarterback who can pull it off. But regardless, you can't help but notice that these teams are all way out in front. And so the Seahawks in 2021. Now, this stat is probably a little lower than it should be because Wilson was hurt. He missed 3.5 games. Geno played. And Wilson came back and played a few games when he clearly wasn't himself. But I don't think it would have made a huge difference to this number. You're still probably looking at a team that is about average in terms of early down pass frequency. Now, 2020 was the exception. The Seahawks were actually really high. This was the let Russ cook year. This was the year where for about the first half of the year, they let Wilson try to be that guy. And we had one of the highest early down pass frequencies in the NFL, behind only teams like the Chiefs, the Bills, the Texans, who were terrible, but they did have a really good quarterback, and Pittsburgh. So, kind of interesting here. But hey, this is the year when you let Russ try to run wild. So it makes sense that this would be the year where, we're going to push it a little bit here. We've got this super prolific future Hall of Fame quarterback. We're going to let him go to work on early downs a lot more frequently, up near 62%, one of the highest in the league. Okay. Year before that, 2019, this was probably Wilson's best year. Our early down pass rate below average, down at about 51, maybe 52%. Kansas City by far number 1, by the way. That's a recurring trend you're going to pick up on here as we go through. But yeah, Seahawks, below average in this area. 2018, this was the first Brian Schottenheimer year. Seahawks, by far, last in the league in early down pass frequency. Oh, hey, there are the Chiefs again. Fun little fact. They're always there at the top. But yeah, Seahawks are in last place, and it's not even remotely close. Sub 40%. So I look at these charts, and I think about how little sense that it makes to have a superstar quarterback and not let him do more work on early downs, hand the ball off more than anyone else, or hand the ball off even more than average on those early downs. When year in and year out, you see the most prolific quarterbacks typically living near the top of this chart. But I look at this, I see what we're doing with Geno through 4 games, and again, it's 4 games, there's time for this stuff to change, but I'm looking at the games the Seahawks have played so far. I went into these games thinking, we need to run the ball, and the Seahawks didn't agree, and they were apparently mostly correct to not agree, because passing the ball worked well. Not in every game, but I'd say in 3 of those 4 games, and the one game where it didn't, San Fran might have the best defense in the league. Did you see what they did to the Rams? Not much. Rams didn't do much better than we did. So I look at that and I look at this quote, and in a weird way, I guess the best way to put it is that this coaching staff, this Seahawks team, genuinely trusts Geno Smith more than they did Wilson. That doesn't make Geno a better quarterback, but it has enabled them to do things that a lot of other really good teams typically do. And it's kind of crazy that those things include having a really high pass rate on early downs. But if you take a look at 2020, the 1 year where with Wilson we passed the ball a lot on early downs, things went great for about a month and a half. The first month and a half was pretty awesome, scoring a ton of points, having one of the best offenses in NFL history. And then things fell off to the point where by mid-season, we kind of threw it out and we kind of went back to the typical offenses of the Wilson era, where it felt like you had a little bit of a handcuff on Wilson. So it makes sense why for this 1 year you saw the rate skyrocket so much. And then the other years that I looked at, and I think this would be the case for most previous Wilson years. I didn't want to go through every year in this video, but you would probably see something relatively similar to that, where if there was any kind of a run game to lean on, it's being leaned on more than average for elite quarterbacks in this league. And to say, all this to say, the Seattle Seahawks genuinely trust Geno more than they did Wilson. And it goes back to this quote that I keep thinking about. He does what you tell him. It is meant to be a shot at Wilson, but it's also meant to be, maybe even more than that, praise towards what Geno Smith is doing right now. And like I said, I'm going to make another Geno video either tomorrow or Friday, I think. I want to talk a little bit more about what he's doing. But it's just very interesting to see how fantasy football, and this is something that I harp on maybe a little too much, people, I think they play too much fantasy football and they've lost track of what winning football actually is, right? When you play football in the way, in this big play or nothing way, which Wilson was occasionally guilty of, you put up good fantasy stats. You're not going to turn the ball over a lot. You're going to have a couple long touchdowns a week. You're going to be efficient because the plays that you do hit go for big plays. But there is something missing there. There's a piece missing in there that for years, when Wilson was here, I kind of convinced myself that, we don't really need that because we're so good at these other things. But you kind of do need that. You do need the ability to efficiently go up the field 7 yards at a time. You do need the ability to hit checkdowns for 4 yards. You do need the ability to hit a quick slant for 3. 3rd and 2, you got to be able to hit that quick little pass to move the chains. 2nd and 8, sometimes you just need to pick up 6 yards so you can get to that 3rd and 2. 1st and 10, sometimes you got to just go pick up 6 yards, make it 2nd and 4. And it really does highlight how, even though you can't really say that, or at least I'm not going to say that Geno's better than Wilson. I think that's a bridge too far. What Wilson does well is still a very desirable thing. But it's looking to me like it's not just talk. It's not just Carroll trying to throw some dirt on Wilson here because they've split up now and he doesn't have to pretend to get along with him completely. And he's also probably a little bit mad about the way things ended. He felt disrespected. But no, it's real. A quarterback like a Geno Smith who does what you tell him, who manages to keep things simple, you can trust him to throw the ball on 1st down more because you have faith that it's going to be 2nd and 5. It's going to be 2nd and 3. It's going to be a 12-yard pickup for a 1st down. Not Wilson might get sacked and lose 15 yards. Or you're going to try some crazy deep shot down the sideline that has no chance and it's going to be 2nd and 10 all the time. And that's how this is working so far. And we'll see how it works for the rest of the season. But I think I may have underestimated how important that aspect of winning football really is. So let me know what you guys think about all this. I just wanted to go through some stats here, and I think that sums it up well. See you guys later. Go Hawks.